explore the numerous vibrant African spiritual practices and their traditions and beliefs. Are you curious to learn more about the many spiritual practices of the African continent? Have you been looking for an accurate guide to African spiritual practices, which doesn't look at them through a Western eye? Africa is home to numerous spiritual practices, from Santería and Haitian Voodoo to Kemetism and Isese, the Yoruba religion. Despite the variety of these traditions, finding a cohesive guide that looks at them from a neutral perspective is kind of challenging. This audiobook is the ideal guide and a great way to further your exploration of African spiritual practices. In this audiobook, you'll learn about the many African spiritual practices. You'll explore the creator gods these traditions believe in. You'll understand the gods and deities of these traditions in greater detail. You'll explore the tradition of African ancestral veneration. You'll learn more about the sacred herbs and plants of the African continent. You'll discover how to build altars and shrines in these African spiritual traditions. This insightful audiobook provides spiritual wisdom and historical facts that will help you further explore the world of African spiritual practices and develop a greater appreciation. When people think of spirituality, their minds often turn to Asian and Western practices, such as yoga, Wicca, paganism, and Druidism. However, there are many more spiritual practices worldwide to learn about, and the African continent is home to several vibrant and fascinating spiritual traditions. Some of the many spiritual traditions in Africa include Kemetism, or Egyptian neo-paganism, Isese, or the Yoruba religion, Haitian Voodoo, Hoodoo, and Santería. Most books on spiritual traditions only focus on well-known traditions, omitting these vibrant traditions altogether. In contrast, this audiobook highlights these spiritual traditions and explores their associated practices extensively. This audiobook opens with an overview of the African spiritual practices that later chapters explore in further detail. We look at how each spiritual community is structured and how rituals are conducted. We look at some of their beliefs so that listeners can comprehensively understand each tradition. Next, the audiobook explores Mot, Kemetism, and Kemetic orthodoxy, and looks at ways to invite Mot, or the cosmic order, into your life. It looks at the 7 principles and the 42 laws of Mot, and explains how listeners can include and follow them. After exploring Ma'at, the audiobook delves into the traditions of supreme creator gods in African spiritual traditions, and how those following these practices believe the world was created. This chapter explains how these creator gods are worshipped. The 4th chapter explores the Lawa and the Orishas, the gods and spirits of Haitian Voodoo and Isese. It will examine the pantheons of each spiritual tradition and help listeners better understand how practitioners venerated and communicated with these deities. Next, the audiobook looks at the mysterious spiritual tradition of Santería and the saints that are significantly important in this tradition. It explores the links between Santería and Catholicism, Haitian Voodoo and Isese, and helps listeners to understand how to invoke each saint's powers. The 6th chapter expands on the African continent's strong tradition of ancestral veneration. Listeners will better understand why ancestors are revered and how different spiritual traditions and religions practice ancestor veneration. After exploring ancestor veneration, the audiobook looks at some of Africa's sacred herbs and plants and their significance in rituals and spells in African spiritual traditions, like hoodoo. We also explore the roles of altars and shrines in these traditions and help you to understand how to build your altar for personal use. Then, we cover in detail 2 common talismans in mojo bags and gree-grees. It teaches you how to create and use each of these talismans, providing a source of protection and magic wherever you go.